Hello everybody and welcome back to the Sideline Sato YouTube channel, and today we're going to look at the new sporting director who has been all but announced by Liverpool. His name is Jörg Schmadtke. He is a sporting director who's been involved in the Bundesliga for a number of clubs, has a scattered kind of reputation, and has kind of gotten a mixed reception amongst people. A lot of people who follow the Bundesliga more regularly than I do, they have stated that, his personality and the bridges that he kind of burns with each club are kind of indicative of impending failure for this appointment at Liverpool. But at the end of the day, I'll give the pros, I'll give the cons, I'll kind of give some backstory to him, how he may have gotten to this role, and yeah, we'll go from there. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. Every bit of support helps. There's more people kind of joining the channel as I put out more content, so that's always lovely to see. But anyway, enough housekeeping. Let's start with the cons, because ultimately that is really the crux of what's driving the kind of controversy around him being appointed, for lack of a better term. So there's issues with a lot of clubs. He kind of has a very no-nonsense, straightforward, but also slightly aggressive personality from what I've read, which kind of causes tensions to flare up between him and clubs. He's only worked in the Bundesliga to my knowledge, and that's kind of led to a negative perception in the Bundesliga around him. But that kind of doesn't lend the whole picture to it. I mean, let's start with Wolfsburg, who he's worked at most recently, where he apparently also had a falling out with them at the end of it. But at Wolfsburg, he signed some players like Maxence Lacroix, Patrick Wimmer, Felix Nemecha, all players who he signed for very cheap relative to the transfer fees in the market currently, and they've ultimately performed at a decent rate. His other pros involve him having a good kind of talent ID. He identifies players who are kind of not really at that superstar level, who aren't really all that well known. And there was even a quote that I read that at one point he knew every single player in Germany from the top league to the fourth league. So he's kind of got a vast knowledge of players in lower leagues, players who aren't necessarily playing for the biggest clubs, players who might not necessarily have the biggest impression for teams around, the top 5 leagues. And for Liverpool, that could be very handy, as ultimately, FSG hasn't really been the type of owners who are ready to just constantly splash the cash summer after summer and spend hundreds of millions each summer to kind of maintain the squad. They're always kind of looking for a bargain. So that kind of leads some credence to the reasoning as to why he might have been brought in. But also, apparently he is an ally, quote unquote, according to a lot of these newspapers, to Jurgen Klopp. Apparently Jurgen played a big part in bringing on Jörg. And ultimately he has a policy that we could see at Wolfsburg, which was quite frankly just signing a lot of players who are under 23, who are very young, who are still quality and have high ceilings and high potential, but ultimately he works with relatively tight budgets and ends up producing results. He's taken teams into European spots who weren't in Europe, who, as a result of his kind of stringent transfer policy and his tactics in the market, have kind of ended up helping that team exceed expectations. But ultimately, I've made this video because I feel like this kind of reinforces this second rebuild and kind of paves the way for the vision of Liverpool moving forward. Obviously, under Michael Edwards initially, there was a lot of rumors around Jurgen and him not necessarily seeing eye to eye on what type of players to recruit. Klopp was more interested in bringing in someone like Julian Brandt to Liverpool as opposed to Mohamed Salah. He wanted to bring in, I think, Mario Götze instead of, somebody in the midfield. There's a lot of kind of now, as of late, a more recent development for Liverpool, I should say, is the fact of Jurgen Klopp, Pep Linders kind of bringing in players who they see as personally being better fits for Liverpool, not necessarily kind of teaming up with the sporting director. I mean, obviously, Julian Ward's had a bit of a turbulent time here, even though he's had some good signings in the likes of Diaz, Gakpo, Nunez as well. I think he's going to come good. But at the end of the day, this kind of involvement with the likes of Jörg Schmadtke kind of builds into the existing notion that Jurgen Klopp is getting more kind of responsibility, more kind of backing to make the decisions that he sees fit, as opposed to having this kind of team. I'm not saying that Schmadtke will be just like kind of a faceless and kind of puppet figure for Jurgen to kind of execute the transfer policy that Jurgen Klopp sees fit, but I do think that ultimately this could go one of two ways, and it will go one of two ways. It'll either be very good or very bad based on the way that Schmadtke's kind of legacy with clubs has kind of developed. He has had some positives, some negatives. So we'll see ultimately. It's hard to tell. A lot of people who support Bundesliga clubs are kind of laughing at this and saying that this is the downfall of Liverpool. But at the end of the day, only time can tell. And I do think it's an unexpected and rather interesting appointment. I didn't even know who he was up until, 12, 24 hours ago. And now with the news of him coming into this role, it just kind of shows that FSG really does back Jurgen Klopp in the sense that they believe in him to make the best decisions at the football club, which in part has kind of influenced FSG to follow his advice of bringing in Schmadtke. So we'll see. Maybe this ends up being the beginning of the end for Liverpool, and this is just like kind of like a warning sign. Maybe everybody in the Bundesliga is underestimating Schmadtke, his abilities, and what Jurgen is cooking. So that's all I really have to say, but ultimately very exciting news. Liverpool's just about done and kind of in the final stages of progressing a deal for Alexis McAllister, which is kind of in the ballpark of apparently 80 million with add-ons. So like in total will be 80 mil, but like of that 80 mil, a certain amount will be like contingent on Liverpool winning certain trophies or, finishing in certain positions in the league. So we shall see. If you liked today's video, once again, please support the channel any way you see fit. I'm Sideline Sato. Peace.